I've been around battlefields my entire life. I've spent time in creepy graveyards at night, and I've slept in old abandoned houses. I've almost never had any paranormal experiences except these two. So the first one that happened to me was at the Battle of Antietam, the Antietam battlefield up there in Maryland. If you're in the South, we call it Sharpsburg. And if you're in the North, it's the Battle of Antietam. Since they won, I use Antietam. One of the worst places to be at the Battle of Antietam was in a little place called Bloody Lane. In Bloody Lane, a bunch of young men got trapped in a sunken road bed. They were trying to defend it against the opposing side, and the opposing side killed them, just butchered them, and overran the position. A lot of young men who lost their lives in this defending, they got essentially trapped in this sunken road bed. Hundreds and hundreds of young men died. So one night and we were doing work at Antietam, and we got to stay overnight, and we decided to camp in the road bed, the sunken road bed of Bloody Lane. And boy, I'm getting antsy just remembering it. But all that happened was we slept there, and we didn't have any fires or any lighting, which maybe contributed to the feeling. So we slept, oftentimes in the Confederate Army especially, you typically just had one blanket per man. So you'd pair up, and one man would lay his blanket on the ground. You'd both sleep on that side by side to keep warm, and then you'd have the spare blanket to put over you. So that's how my buddy and I were sleeping that night. We both woke up at the same time, and we heard voices. Very short distance down the lane from us, and we didn't recognize who it was. We were listening, and I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it just sounded like a couple, hillbilly guys muttering, whispering back and forth to each other. So we kept hearing it. Somebody had a big spotlight flashlight, and so my buddy reached over and he got that spotlight and flipped it on and shined it all down the road bed, in the bed of the road as far down, and the spotlight reached far. There was nobody there. And we turned it off, and we started hearing the voices again, both me and my buddy. We flipped the spotlight on again, and there's nobody down there. And you can hear, I'm telling you, the voices like 20 feet away from us in the roadbed. We could tell it was not up on the shoulder, not out in the fields, in the roadbed about 20 feet from us. And we kept shining the spotlight on the spot where we heard the voice. And it was really sounded like two voices. And you could kind of tell they were like redneck hillbilly guys whispering back and forth to each other. So that's inexplicable. That's not that remarkable, I guess. It could be explained, but I can't explain it. It was creepy. Story number 2. This happened near Murfreesboro, Tennessee, at the Battle of Stones River. If you're not familiar with that, all these battles are horrific, but I encourage you to look up the Battle of Stones River, and if you're ever in the area, visit it. There's lots of limestone boulder formations around there. One of these formations became known as the Slaughter Pen. I wonder how I got that name. Essentially a bunch of soldiers, young men, infantry, they got trapped out in the woods in this boulder field. So these young men, in desperation to defend against the enemy, they got down in these ditches, these natural carved out rock holes like foxholes and trenches in this rock formation, and thought it'd be a good place, and it turned out being their graveyard. So once again, we were doing work for the National Park Service at the battlefield of Stones River up there in Tennessee, and the specific unit we were portraying, they were all wearing broad-brimmed black hats. Not the typical kepi or forage cap that you associate with the American Civil War. This comes into play later. So there's maybe 10 of us that went out at night. We said, hey, let's all walk the trail and go to the Slaughter Pen tonight at like midnight, 11 o'clock, and just go check it out at night. And we did, and it was amazing, an amazing experience. We had a lot of fun. It was scary and all that. One of my young friends, he had a little handheld video camera. Like back in the day, you felled it out the side and it recorded on a little videotape. And he walked and stood at one point on the side of the trail, and he filmed each of us, and he had the night vision like on the lens, so it's like a green tinted night vision film. And he filmed each of us as we walked down this dark trail, and we were all giggling and laughing and stuff. And even in the night vision at night, I can recognize each of my friends who were on that film. We got back to the campsite. My friend opened up the camera, rewound the little tape or whatever it was, and we all looked at the film. And as we're walking down, there's a boy, a young man, a teenage boy, who's walking with us that none of us recognized. he's not saying anything, but he's got this huge grin on his face, and he's looking at everybody and walking with us down the trail. He wasn't there. He was not there. One important piece of evidence, I mentioned before that every one of us was wearing a broad-brimmed black hat. This young man was wearing a kepi, and it was a light-colored, short kepi, the type of forage cap kepi hat that both sides wore. And it's difficult to tell from the lighting what color it was. We were all wearing black hats. His hat appeared to be a light color, like it was gray or a light brown. I can't explain that. That's the most inexplicable, remarkable experience I've ever had. And I've been all over this country, and I've slept out at some dark, scary places at night. I can't explain where that young man came from, who he was. If you ask me, to this day, I think he was the ghost of a Confederate soldier.